There are certain advantages that wealthy people have that others just don't, and it's not what you think at all. So the thing about success and wealth and things like that most people want is that success leaves clues. And so when it comes to the poor, the middle class, and the rich, the thing that separates the two, it's not about race, it's not about how somebody grew up, it's not about somebody being prejudiced or racist against one group and the other. It's not about any of those things whatsoever. The biggest difference between the three is the psychology and how you actually think about money. Now, when you think about this, because I know like people say that all the time, and I think sometimes, unfortunately, people discount it. And when it comes to people that have a lot of money, the only difference is how they think about money. And the only difference beyond that is how they view the purpose of money is. So I want you to think about this. So when it comes to how to get money, poor people think about it like this: how can I get more money? Well, how I can get more money is I can try to get somebody to give me something without exchanging any value whatsoever. That's how poor people think. Because sometimes when poor people think about getting over, if you will, whether it's, getting over on the government, getting over on the system, they just want somebody to give them something without exchanging any type of value whatsoever. And it's like what they fail to realize is that, yeah, you might get something in the moment, but it's keeping you operating at a lower level to truly become a slave to whatever you're depending on to actually feed you. And that's a poverty mindset. And so many people have it because they're satisfied with, somebody just giving them $1,000 a month and they don't have to do anything, not realizing that they were meant for so much more. There's so much potential there. And it's like when they really get in touch with their potential and how much they can really make, then they understand that even if this person is giving them $1,000 to do absolutely nothing, they're getting the worst end of the deal. They're actually getting cheated. And when it comes to middle class and how middle class think about how to acquire and how to get more money, they think about, I need to get a better job. And the thing is this, and I want to be very clear. So I've been in all three. I've been in the poor mindset, I've been in the middle class mindset, and I've been in the rich mindset as well. And it took me to truly go through the first two channels to get to where I am today. And I promise you, and I used to hear people talk about mindset all the time, and I used to think it was BS until it happened to me, until I said, you know what, I have nothing to lose. Let me truly take these people up on their word and challenge them to truly think a different way to get something different. And it turned out to actually work. It's a universal principle, it's universal laws that go along with it. However, the thing that I want you to think about is this. When it comes to something not working, the worst thing that you can do is put more effort into something that's not working. Because there are certain things that people do really well that should not be done at all. And I'm not saying that people should never have a job, because I think that sometimes a job is your first and best business partner. Like a job could be the thing that you actually use to get you to the next level. But when it comes to true freedom, a job is not going to give it to you. And I say that with all due respect. Because when you think about, somebody wanting to make more money and they say, look, I got to get a better job. Sometimes people don't realize that a job keeps you in a certain mindset. And sometimes when you get a better paying job, it just gives you a better way of thinking about the very thing that keeps you trapped in a certain group, in a certain segment, to have certain things. And it's like you can never go beyond, this level, if you will. But you got a better way of looking at it. A better way of feeling comfortable, a better way of pretty much, convincing yourself that you're better than everybody else that's below you. Because a lot of times that's really what it comes down to. Because when people want better jobs, sometimes they become managers. And so they manage people, they get titles. But when it comes to them truly having freedom and wealth, people rarely they don't really see it. But it's like they really move further away from freedom. Because the more money that they make, the more responsibility that they get, and typically the more people that they manage. And when you manage people on that level, that's not freedom. like you think about it, you have a lot of grown kids that now you're responsible for, who might do things to put your job at risk because somebody's paying you a certain amount to manage them. That's very difficult, and It's all about how somebody thinks about it. So, when it comes to like wealthy people think about it from a totally different perspective. Wealthy people think about, okay, in order for me to get more money, what problem can I solve? And I don't want to reduce it to say all they do is solve problems. But wealthy people, when you think about the wealthiest people in the world, they just solve the biggest problems. I mean, that's it. Think about this, for example, and maybe you know people, but I know a ton of people who have needed money before Friday, before that check came. And they're thinking like, man, I need to pay this bill and I have, 5 days left before I get my check. What do I do? Well, a wealthy person thought about this problem that a lot of poor and middle class people have. Well, how can I solve that problem? Oh, what I would do is I'll create a cash in advance business where I'll give people the cash that they need in advance, but I'm going to charge them mafia interest rates. And charging like 20, 30, 40% on a small amount of money. And it's like the amount that they actually borrowed, sometimes they pay back more in interest than what they actually borrowed. And guess what? A wealthy person just thought about a problem. Like, that's it. And you think about it. A lot of people complain about how it's unfair and it should be legal and it should be this and that. But guess what? They're still taking out those loans every single day. They're still taking out those loans every single day. Why? Because it solves a problem that they have. And it solves a problem that they continuously find themselves in over and over again, because they're just thinking about how can I get something from somebody without exchanging value, or they're just thinking about how can I get another job versus how can I solve a big problem that a lot of people have and get them to pay me for the solution to my problem. And the thing about this is when it comes to the poor, the middle class, and the wealthy, the poor people, they own absolutely nothing at all. Middle class people, they own a job. Wealthy and rich people, on the other hand, they own a system. So I want you to think about that. They own a system. I mean, you could think about Amazon, you could think about McDonald's, you could think about so many different places, and they can pretty much plug anybody into any one of these positions and it's going to run because it's actually a system. And even if you don't go, big on that level, there's people that are making millions and millions of dollars every single month. You don't even know their names. Like, they're not popular. Some of them not even on social media, but they have systems that solve problems, and those systems bring them money day in and day out because of how they think about money. And the thing about poor people and middle class people, they want a guarantee. Like, they want something to be 100% guaranteed. And that's why they rely on either, asking somebody for something or working for somebody else. And when it comes to the rich and wealthy people, it's not about a guarantee for them. They just want an opportunity, because one is betting on themselves and one is betting on somebody else. Because when you think about any job that somebody works for, there was an owner, there was a founder, there was somebody who created that job from either nothing or from some kind of problem. And it's like the people that work for this job, they don't think about that the person who created this job or created this opportunity, they're a business owner, or they're an opportunity, like they're an entrepreneur, like they're an investor of some sort. Like, they don't think about it from that perspective because they have tunnel vision, just specifically focused on their job. But when you think about it from that perspective, if every single person who created these jobs that people work for, if they're super wealthy, that's a clue. The clue is this: the wealthy people are the people that don't work the hardest. The wealthy people are the people that created the vision and established systems for other people to work in. And so the people that are poor middle class, they're the people that's making the system run. They're the people that are capped at how much they can make. Like, they're the people who try to find a little bit more pay just to cope with maybe an unfulfilled lifestyle. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. And I'm saying that because I've been there before and I know what it's like. And another thing is this, when it comes to poor, middle class, and rich people, they have a different concept on what the purpose of money is. So a lot of poor people think that the purpose of paying money or the purpose of money is just paying bills and buying liabilities. Like that's it. Because like poor people, sometimes they have money spent before they even get it. It's like they're flat out broke. But it's like as soon as they get $1,000, $1,200 of it is already spent because of how they think about money. And middle class people, they're a little bit better. However, they're delusional to a certain extent because middle class people focus more on building and maintaining good credit. And so a lot of times middle class people, they buy a lot of stuff that they can't afford, and they make themselves feel better because at least they pay it off on time to build up that credit score. And sometimes having a great credit score is the thing that keeps people trapped on that hamster wheel of the middle class, if you will. And I don't care what, if you upper middle class or higher middle class, again, if you're in that middle, like that is one of the most dangerous places to be because that's where the most deception takes place. And I don't want to go too deep into that, but a lot of times when it comes to the middle class, the middle class focuses on having good credit because for them having an 800 or 850 credit score makes them feel good about everything else that might not be right in their lives. So it's like, at least, I go to this job, I'm not making the money I want, I don't really have the time to spend with my family because I'm always working, but at least I have this great credit score to allow me to buy things that I can't afford that's at least better than what rich people can have access to. And that is a deception that a lot of people fall into. However, when it comes to rich and wealthy people, they understand that the purpose of money is to turn money into more money. They understand that the purpose of credit is taking that credit and using that credit to make more money. So it's not about having good credit or bad credit. It's about having credit to use and leverage to make more money with. Wealthy people don't really care about a credit score. Like that is something that's a deception for really middle class people, because even poor people don't really care about a credit score. It's like, hey, I got enough money to borrow something, fine, whatever. Like they don't care about credit. So you have poor and wealthy people, they don't care about credit. Credit is really for the middle class. Middle class people care about their credit score more than anybody else because that is what they romanticize over. Like that is what they fantasize over, and that is what they want to be, higher than what it is. And that's what they really work for, and that's what they maintain. However, when you really think about it, it is a deception, because if you have this great credit score, but you're not maximizing it, what good does it do you if you do have an 800 credit score or an 850 credit score? But wealthy people, on the other hand, they understand that, listen, any credit that I have, I'm going to use and leverage that credit to make more money. And any money that I have, I'm going to use that money to make me more money. And so the thing that I really want you to pay attention to, because I didn't really understand this until recent, and I started getting around people that have a lot of money and a lot more money than I do, is that a lot of times when you see wealthy and rich people and they have, like these extravagant houses or these extravagant cars, or they're going on these luxurious vacations, a lot of times that is a strategy. And it's a strategy for one of two reasons. Number one strategy is for tax write-offs. So when you see a lot of these cars and a lot of these houses and vacations and things like that, those are strictly tax write-offs. Like, it's not just them taking their primary money and just go blowing it on something that's never going to return them money. Those are tax strategies. And so there's a difference, because like sometimes people that are poor middle class, they buy things to heal from their trauma. Wealthy people and rich people, on the other hand, they buy things to offset their taxes. Now, hear me out. I'm not saying that rich and wealthy people, they don't have trauma as well. They do. They do. I promise you. However, when it comes to spending money, they spend money from a totally different perspective. It's more about strategy. Because here's the thing. When you find a way to make money from money that you make, it's like you don't want to interrupt that game. Because if you could put $100 in and take $250 out, and take $250 and make it into 500, and put 500 in and make it into 5,000, and it's like you just keep up leveling. You don't want to disrupt that growth, because you understand, like, this is a game that I get to play and it's winnable for me, and I'm winning constantly. So it's like, if I take all of this money and I go spend it on something else that's a liability, that's not bringing me any money at all, I have immediately lost the game. Because guess what? Now, in order for me to get more money, to make money, I got to start from scratch. And that's what a lot of wealthy people understand, that a lot of middle class and poor people don't understand. Like, poor people understand that, listen, if I'm flat out broke, nobody can ask me to borrow anything. Because like a lot of times people are in the poor, middle class and wealthy because they're fearful of how other people are going to view them. And so many middle and poor people, like, they're fearful of telling people no. And so it's like, for them, it's just better if I'm just broke anyway, because that means I can ask you before you ask me. Because sometimes it's not about potential at all. And I don't say this to be disrespectful, but there are a lot of people that are not that smart that are making a lot of money. And it's people that are brilliant that are broke. So it's not about being smart, but it's about the psychology and how you view money. And so when you think about the purpose of money, because whatever your view is in terms of the purpose of money, that's how you're going to approach it. Because if you just think that money is just used to pay bills and buy liabilities, that means that you're going to ensure that you have bills, so that when you get money, those bills are allocated to actually be paid. Or, from a middle class perspective, if your view in terms of what the purpose of money is to build your credit, and pay your bills on time, you're going to do the exact same thing, but just on a different level. So that means that you're going to buy things, because believe it or not, sometimes people buy things just to build their credit. So people will go in debt just to build their credit, because they've been conditioned, they've been taught, and they've been tricked that it's very important for you to build your credit. And here's the thing, there are several different credits that people can have, and unfortunately people build the wrong one. Because if you build business credit, that's something totally different than just building credit, so that you can have more consumer debt. Because people are more focused on that credit score, which is all fixated around consumer debt, than they are business credit whatsoever. Because over here, when you take business credit, you can turn $100,000 into $1 million. And here's the thing, you don't realize that it's easier to get this credit over here to actually work and get you to where you want to be financially. The interest rate is lower. The rules are a lot different. There's tax benefits. From over here, it's like the interest rates are higher, and there's not a whole lot of benefits, and it's more focused on liabilities than it is assets. Because the reality is this, what it all boils down to is assets and liabilities. Because a lot of people have been tricked and deceived into thinking that your home is an asset. And here's the reality. Your home is an asset. It's just not yours. Because if your home is not bringing you money, then your home is whoever have the mortgage that you owe, like, it's their asset. Because an asset is something that brings you money. A liability is something that takes money away. And it's like, wealthy and rich people understand that the quicker that I can get my money to work for me, the quicker that now turns into an asset. That becomes an asset who's pregnant with more potential assets that I want to keep fertile and make as many as I possibly can. And like I said, when you get to a point where it's like your money is making money, you don't want to disrupt the flow of that fertility, because it continues to grow. And so what it does is it allows you to understand that, listen, if I do want something, now what I'll do is I'll get an asset to pay for this liability. Or if I do want something, let me figure out how can I get this liability to turn into an asset. So I actually know somebody, they bought a $2 million house recently, I believe in West Virginia. $2 million. So like that note is pretty high. But what they've done is that they've taken this house and they rent this house out for 10 days a month on Airbnb. And what they've calculated is that if they just rent their house out just for 5 days out of the month, it pays for the entire mortgage. But they allocate 10 days a month out of that. So here's what that means. That means that this $2 million house, somebody else is paying for it, but they get to enjoy it at least minimum 20 days out of every single month. And that house is now an asset for them, even though they borrowed money to acquire that house. So they understand that, listen, the thing about this debt is that I want this debt to make me more money. And there are some people who think that all debt is bad. And a lot of that becomes something that goes back to our childhood and trauma and things that we've seen. Because I know I had a lot of trauma around, owing people money. And it's like I was at a point, and a lot of people think this too, is I don't want to owe anybody anything, so I'm going to pay cash for everything. And a lot of that stems from trauma, because that's not something that's truly going to get you ahead. Because when you think about leverage, if you start with zero, you can't, like, even if you 4 times what you have, if you have zero, you can't multiply that. So it's like when people take all of their money and just pay something off, now they're at zero. They have nothing to leverage. And if they don't want to use credit, they have nothing to leverage. But if you have money and you have credit, you now have 2 things that you can multiply, and those things can make you more money, because now you can leverage your money and you can leverage your credit. So wealthy people just think from a totally different perspective. And a lot of times, poor people, they buy the things that they think other people will think they're rich for having. However, when you really get to a certain level of when you are something, you don't have to convince somebody that you are. Like wealthy people that are healed, let me say that. Wealthy people that are healed, they don't use their money to try to prove to somebody else that they're wealthy, because they're already wealthy. It's only poor middle class people that use their money to try to make somebody else think and feel that they have or they are something that they're not. Because so often, and I used to do this, and I'm almost ashamed to say it, but I'm just being real, is that sometimes people would spend money that they don't have to impress people that they don't like for a bill that they're going to have to pay for a long time after they've forgotten about who they were even trying to impress from acquiring that bill. I used to be there. But it's like now, I don't really care what people think about me, to the extent that I'm going to do something different. It's like I care what people think, but not to the extent that it changes what I do. It's like I have a plan, and I'm thinking about my family. I'm thinking about legacy. I'm thinking about like generational wealth. And because I'm thinking about generational wealth, temporarily decisions, they don't really impact me like they once did before, especially when it comes to other people that's not helping me build my wealth. And the psychology of money is one of the things it's the separator. And it's really, really simple. It's not easy, but it's really, really simple. And so the thing that I want you to understand is this: regardless to where you are, you can always up-level your mindset. You can always up-level your game. You can always move, from different levels. If you're in the middle class right now, you could easily, and I'm saying easily, go to the rich, and the wealthy level, if you will, because what people fail to understand is that from going from middle class to rich and wealthy, it's not so much about money. It's about mindset, because there's a lot of people that have a lot of money, but they're poor, like they're poverty in their mind. You would be amazed at how many people are making millions of dollars every single year, some of them every single month, and they're still living paycheck to paycheck. That is a poverty mindset. So it's not so much about money, because these people that are making millions, they just get to experience certain things temporarily that a lot of poor people that have no money either never experience or won't experience. But here's the reality. Eventually, they're both going to end up in the same place. Like they're both going to end up in the same place if they don't change their mindset. And so the thing that I want to encourage you to do is just think about, like, when you get money, how can you use this money to make more money with? Or if you have credit, how can you use this credit to make more money with? And so again, it's all about like questions. And a lot of times we have things in our lives based on the quality of questions that we ask ourselves. Because sometimes people make the mistake of, thinking that they're just a victim. Like, why me? That's a horrible question. Why you? And it's like when you think about whatever you want and whatever, you don't currently have, asking yourself, how can you get that? How can you acquire that? And how can you solve a problem to get other people to pay for it by way of giving them value? Those are quality questions that multi-billionaires and multi-millionaires, like everyday millionaires, have asked themselves to get to where they are. So when it comes to the psychology of money, it's all about your thinking and your thought process and your psychology. And I want to encourage you to understand that the best way for you to truly get free is to own the decision that affords you that life to get there. And typically is you making money independent of somebody else determining whether you can or can't do something or not. Because so often it's like when we have kids, think about how ridiculous it is that we have to ask somebody permission. And to ask somebody permission, can we go support our child? Or can we go support our family? And if they say no, guess what? We're stuck at their job with our lip poked out with an attitude, and we stay there. Versus if you your own boss, and you make your own money, and it's like who you have to answer to is you. Now again, I do advise people have a mentor, but in terms of you wanting to take time off and you making as much money as you can, like sky's the limit. Because again, wealthy people, they just want an opportunity. But middle class and poor people, they want a guarantee. And so a lot of times that guarantee keeps them stuck, because whatever they want the guarantee on, that guarantee stays the exact same even if the rules of the game change. So if they want a certain amount guaranteed, guess what? They might get that guaranteed amount for 5 years with no pay raise whatsoever, because they were only thinking about right now and the guarantee that they got. Versus when you truly take matters into your own hand, you bet on you, and you think about how can you serve people at the highest level and figure out what kind of problems that people have that you are assigned and you can help them get. Now you remove the cap off of your income and you serve people at a totally different level. You get fulfillment, you have freedom, and you have the finances to go with it. Like, that is a phenomenal recipe that most of us rarely get a chance to consider, because we're scared and we're fearful of truly betting on ourselves, because we're more focused on the guarantee than the opportunity. Now, real quick, if you've gotten any value out of this video, I really encourage you to hit that like button, subscribe, and I promise you really want to stay tuned for this next video, because it's going to be phenomenal.